You know, we end up mentioning quite often here on this channel in relation to entertainment and gaming how everything was simply just a lot better back in the good old days. And man, it really was as well. The early 2000s was the golden age of gaming in particular, but there is one thing that has changed for the better. The delivery service of entertainment, as back in ye old good old days, you could sit down in front of the television and watch a movie, and half the total runtime would be advertisement. 10, 15-minute ad breaks in between each little vertical slice of movie. Oh, those were the hard old days, most assuredly. We could perhaps tell our children about this. Oh yes, when your dad was young, he had to watch advertisements with his television programming. Well, never fear, because we are in fact returning to those good old days now. But in all the wrong ways, as Amazon has announced that it will be changing the pricing structure on Prime Video. So, to continue investing in compelling content and keep increasing that investment over a long period of time, starting in early 2024, Prime Video shows and movies will include limited advertisement. Limited advertisement. So basically, however much they feel they can get away with, and that number will steadily then increase as the years go by, just as it did with television. You know, back in the older days, there were advertisements in the middle of movies, but they were usually relatively brief, and certainly didn't match up to the runtime of the movie itself. It was considered kind of a payment to entry, you know? You got to watch the movie for free, and the television got to show stupid ads to you. Fair enough. And then the ads increased, and increased, and increased, and increased. Until, well, everyone was doing it, so you didn't really have an alternative. You couldn't just switch over to another channel and see the same movie because, well, it wasn't running over there. And even if it was, they would have just as much advertisement as well. This new advertisement option will, however, not be like Disney Plus, which is a lower priced tier where you get to pay via watching advertisement. Instead, this will be the basic tier, and if you wish to have an ad-free experience, you're going to have to slap on another $2.99, so $3 as they always round up the last one, if you want to keep watching videos on Prime without advertisement. Why are they doing this? Well, it's because their entertainment actually, frankly, sucks, and the competition in the marketplace is simply goddamn too massive. This is unironically going to be the death of streaming. Well, the transformation, more correctly, into just old cable television, where you'll be bombarded with adverts no matter how much you pay, for the simple reason that, well, it's more profitable to show you 15, 20 adverts in the middle of a movie rather than having you pay a monthly fee for it. Hell, even the advertisements here on YouTube, for example, it's enough for people to make a living off. Can you imagine what major corporations earn? Oh, good God. And the issue is as well that, well, as we mentioned, entertainment just isn't as good today. Most of it's actually garbage. I mean, look at this here. This is their bragging splash here, right? Their top shows, right? Citadel turned out to be garbage, frankly. It's got an incredibly uninteresting premise. I tried to watch some of it. It's just bad. It is just awful. Rings of Power and The Wheel of Time, two of the largest literary entities in human history. In fact, the largest next to the Bible, I believe, in the case of The Lord of the Rings. And The Wheel of Time is not exactly a small entity itself. These should both, by any right, be enormous smash hits. They should be enormously massive. And yet The Rings of Power is not only a garbage television show, it also flopped whilst costing billions to produce. The Wheel of Time is the exact same thing. Ruined by diversity and wokeism. Like this poster here, right, is beautiful. Because, oh, this is the main character, right? No. This here, this tiny little bold character in the background, that's the main character of The Wheel of Time. And you wouldn't know it watching the show either. Creed, just inferior Rocky, basically. The Boys and Invincible, those are a couple of actual successors, and seeing as those entities were lesser known as well, they were probably very profitable because it didn't cost a whole lot to acquire them. But they are two out of countless. Reacher 2 was apparently a decent success, and considering that's basically just stay-at-home mom pornography, I mean, hey, know your target audience, I suppose, but this isn't enough. The market could probably bear like 2 or 3 streaming platforms all producing their own hits and big old expensive misses and be able to still get in enough money via subscription services. However, we've currently got more than 2,000. Let me just show you here. Let's just start scrolling a little bit. These are all of the various subscription services or various streaming platforms currently available on the internet. As every single television channel now has its own goddamn streaming service. Every entertainment industry, every studio, all of it. They've all got streaming nonsense now. It's kind of a macrocosmos of what sort of happened to gaming for a bit there, where every single games company tried to create their own little launcher, like the Uplay launcher, and Origin grew a little bit larger, of course, all to try and compete with Steam to be like, okay, we want our own storefront when we can take our full cut without giving Steam anything, so everyone made one, and all it really did was give you even more garbage shit on your desktop as people continued to gravitate towards the handful of big ones because that was all you ever needed. Like even the gaming market can only handle 2 or 3 large platforms. Everything else is pretty much pointless at that point. Not to mention, of course, again, the point of decreasing quality. This little meme picture right here is just, oh god, is it the perfect example of this. $94 million budget, Gondor at its weakest. This armor looks brilliant. It looks fantastic. It looks tough. It looks sturdy. It looks like goddamn armor. It makes the Gondorian troopers look like super heavy shock assaulters. They're wearing full goddamn plate practically. They look like an elite army of a major fantasy faction, and it's rich with decorations and iconography. It tells you about their history, their beliefs, their value systems. Meanwhile, the Rings of Power, a poorly fitting cloth/leather-ish thingy-bob t-shirt which looks like it's shrunk in the goddamn wash. And this is intended to be the High Men, the Númenóreans. The Gondorians are intended to be a pale shadow, a mere imitation of the might of Númenor. And this costs $1 billion. A simple fact is, people aren't capable of doing more with less anymore. People now have more than ever, and they do less and less. Star Wars is another beautiful example. The origins of most of those iconic weapons is just random World War II garbage that was laying around in their millions because, well, we just finished the war and all this shit was just laying around. Nobody was using it for military nonsense anymore, so you could just buy up some HDAT MG34s, slap a little stupid scope on it, dads on some diddly-doo doobats literally welded or just bolted on, and people were like, yeah, that looks kind of scientific. That looks science fiction-y enough. Painted black for extra effect. And there you go. This absolute junk spawned one of now the largest entities in entertainment. Meanwhile, with a budget bigger than ever, this is what we get from the Wheel of Time. Randall Thor as a tiny back character in his own story. The Rings of Power focus almost exclusively on diverse characters and a bad Galadriel. And then the shows with dick all in the way of actual money, like The Boys, it does great. Like Invincible, a goddamn cartoon series, is out competing the Wheel of Time and the Lord of the Rings. Oh, good God. A lot of this simply has to do with incompetence, but, well, again, if you have a area, this also has to do with, of course, the quality of the talent as well. If you have 200 streaming platforms, all competing for the same talent, you are going to have all of it spread extraordinarily thin. And so each platform are going to get a few successes, but majority misses, or just mediocre garbage, frankly. The gems will be few and far between, and they will be spread out across an enormous field, to the point where finding them becomes a challenge in and of itself. And of course, that means that, success. I think Jack Ryan did okay as well. I tried watching it, I hated it, but, apparently it did okay. Needs to carry all of the mediocres and all of the absolute failures as well on their shoulders, whilst paying a larger than ever staff, whilst paying a larger than ever studio, whilst paying larger than ever advertisement fees, etc, etc, etc. Like the Rings of Power flew out goddamn influencers from across the globe to castles to watch the first snooze-inducing episode, not a single one of which did any content on The Lord of the Rings thereafter. This is going to end one out of two ways. The first is that they look at the amount of money they're losing and the amount of money they get in, and they go, well, we're going to have to do what Amazon Prime is doing right here, moving the cost over onto you, the consumer. Now, this is almost guaranteed to fail, in my opinion, for the simple reason that money is getting more and more valuable in that it gets less and less of it. Our economies are shrinking even as we spend more and more on various nonsense, like fighting viruses, which turn out to not be that dangerous, apparently, to the point where now we have a hard time discovering the difference between it and the common cold in many cases, or waging wars in certain areas, for example. The money is pouring out, the investor money is drying up, and so they will need to move the money over to the customers. As everything starts to increase in price, the actual total audience will shrink because less and less people will be able to actually afford it, which will cause the collapse of the majority of these platforms. The other thing that might happen is that they are going to compete with each other so furiously that the majority of them is going to die out relatively rapidly, and then they can move back on over to the subscription fee. Or alternatively, actually a third option there, which will kind of go into that, is the advertisement, where in essence, instead of monetizing the audience's actual pocketbook, they start doing what television did and monetize their time instead, which in essence will just lead us right back to the era of television yet again, defeating all of the, interesting promises of streaming. Because streaming as an idea is an excellent one. On-demand content, whatever you want to watch, whenever you want to watch it, wherever you want to watch it, on whatever device you want to watch it on. Brilliant. But seeing as that can only bear, again, 2 or 3 major competitors with a handful of TV channels, etc., doing their own little streaming garbage nonsense, that will eventually turn into a complete free-for-all, where we will literally return to the television infrastructure. Where right now, for example, TV channels have their own streaming services. Those streaming services will purchase entertainment entities to run on their services, like movies or TV shows. Those will then run with advertisements. The streaming services themselves will need to make up for the shortcoming of actually producing this garbage, and they can't just release it immediately because that will defeat the entire point of making it in the first place, to be so-called exclusives to drive subscriber numbers, and so they will add on high costs or higher advertisement time into the episodes, and then you'll just get it double up. It's beautiful, isn't it? We have managed through sheer everyone wanting a piece of the pie to completely ruin the pie itself, leaving nothing more than the tiniest, most microscopic crumbs available for the majority of the producers. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. You would think that the entertainment market would have no cap on it. I mean, there's how many billions people on the planet right now, the majority of which probably have internet access? The amount of entertainment we consume on a daily basis is higher than any point in human history. And there still isn't enough demand to make the Rings of Power profitable. Congratulations, Amazon. You have actually, literally, unironically, managed to turn one of the greatest literary works in the history of humanity into actually, not even worthless, actually negative, actually taking away from your bottom line products. You haven't just created feces, you have created anti-money. Good job. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.